Welcome to Demolition Success Secrets, the podcast that's changing the game for demolition businesses everywhere. Ever wondered how a wrecking ball wielding industry can leverage digital marketing to dominate their market? Well, we've got the blueprints, strategies, expert guests, and more to show you how. Stay tuned, because we're about to blast through the barriers of your business.
Cool, guys. Welcome to another awesome episode of Demolition Success Secrets. We have a really great guest today. He's got an awesome polo. I have a not awesome polo today with the Buccaneers who lost, which is all good because I got this from my girlfriend and I don't really support them even though I live here. It's a nice shirt though. So welcome, Jeremy. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, let's get on into it. You work at a firm. How did you get involved in the space? How did you get where you are?
Would have been back in 2010. I was taking a program at BCIT, just a local university out here in BC. And program ended, went back to my regular job during the summer. And one of the professors reached out to me that there was an opening as essentially a junior estimator with MatCon. And so I applied, I had an interview, and I started with them back in 2010. And it's been almost, about 14 years now. Doing Demolition. Wow,
yeah. Crazy. Have those years gone by quick, slow, exciting, scary? What kind of emotions have come?
It has gone by, I'd say, pretty quick. Like, it feels like some days I just started, and I was now, like I said, I'm a project director now. I'm running a demolition division, so it's come a long way. Some days do feel like it's taken a while, but other days it's like, wow, where did the years go by? So it's been a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed it. That's why I've stayed where I have been for this entire time.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this: how does a company keep someone happy and satisfied? I mean, the amount of time you've been there, I would say, from the guys that I know in the space. Not so much the owners, even some of them, the shady ones, they're changing LLCs every other day. We don't hang around too many of those guys, but in terms of the team members, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you happy? How does the ownership and leadership keep a guy like Jeremy really into things?
It's just been like the company was originally started by just two guys. So it's always got that family oriented kind of feel to it, and it's just, I guess I would say the culture is what's kept me here. I enjoy everybody I work with. Everybody gets along. People do things together outside of work. It's not just work. There's company events and stuff like that. That's one of the big things, is just, I've dealt with stuff in my personal life over the years too, and there's never been like, oh, we need you here tomorrow, or you can't be dealing with stuff like that. So it's just, there's more to work, and the understanding that people don't just have like a work life, you have an outside of life as well too, and being able to deal with that and deal with work at the same time is probably one of the biggest reasons why I'm still here with MatCon. And I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy being here, so I'll keep going as long as I can. Nice.
Okay. Well, yeah, that says a lot about the company and the culture, because I have seen cultures that are really amazing. We recently had a guest on out in Austin, Texas area, and I mean, it was like he was the owner of the place. He was just so happy and so pumped up to be doing what they're doing. I almost thought it was one of those like corny corporate training videos where it's like, hey, this is how we are. And you're like, come on, man, like, it's a job. But I mean, even I'm seeing that with you, which is pretty impressive. So for our audience, owners, team members, like, you gotta have a culture. You gotta seek a culture, I would say.
Yeah, and like with that too, there's quite a few of us. Like, so in our company, we don't just have demolition. That's one of our divisions. We have multiple divisions: excavation and shoring, environmental, soil remediation, underground utilities, rock stabilization, and there's long employees in all of those divisions. It's not just like, there's lots of people plus 15 years. So everyone's enjoying being here, and I believe it's just going to continue staying like that.
That's awesome. Cool. So where is the future of your division going? How are you guys growing?
The last year was a little bit of a slow year. Just, it was kind of a, there's a bit of a recession, and in demolition, we see that first. A lot of people are a little hesitant to pull the plug on some projects. They don't want to get going right away. They want to see where interest rates and all that started. So last year was a bit slow, but it's really started to pick back up again. We do a lot of commercial demolition. We've been doing a lot of industrial demolition, not as much, and that's kind of what we're pushing to get more into. And we just continue to grow. So
That's awesome. Yeah, the economic cycles are kind of interesting because we work with a lot of demolition clients, and some of them have insurance work, which is really cool because that helps get through cycles. Obviously, in the demolition space, it's kind of like being a city or landscape architect in a way, because while you're dwindling or taking something away, typically, and I would imagine you would say this as well, in a good majority, there's something new. There's new life being brought. There's a new building or something of that nature when something is taken away. Not always the case, but what would you say from your experience? Is it kind of like 80% of the time something new is going in the place of what's being taken down?
Yeah, there is that huge heritage factor now where a lot of people are trying to save, the original culture, that even though we have a pretty relatively new culture, we're only talking 100 years, 50 years, but people are still wanting to save that. And it just kind of depends on the client and how much they want to save and express that into their new buildings. But I'd probably say 80% of it's completely gone and 20% of it's saved. So
okay.
And I find the parts where they try to save 20%, that's their goal, and then it comes to reality and you start, and then we can only do maybe 10%, and the cost just keeps going up to save portions of that. So it gets trickier in that sense.
Okay. And what type of projects is kind of a sweet spot for you guys? Obviously, you're looking to do more in certain spaces and things like that. Can you tell us what, let's say, current state today is? A lot of stuff commercial, a lot of it residential. What size square footage and floors?
We rarely do residential. We do a lot of high scale commercial. Ideal projects for us are usually ones that we can offer MatCon, all of our services across the board. So we can go in there, we can wreck the building, whether it be like a 7-story, 10-story high rise. Then we demolish it. Then our excavation guys come in, they excavate and shore to 4 or 5 parkade levels below grade. Then we bring that back up, and we can do all our on-site civil work, and then we essentially turn the project back over to someone when they're ready to construct. So those are our ideal projects, something that can involve all of MatCon. And the commercial industry is huge here in Vancouver, and it's not showing any signs of slowing down. So we're going to keep pushing that market.
That's awesome. And it's cool too, on your website, all the projects, kind of in my world, we do marketing for demolition companies, and case studies are huge, right? I mean, you got to prove a concept. I think I give you guys a lot of credit because maybe it's just an American thing, but a lot of demolition companies, they just pride themselves on their name, their past performance and past work, referrals, things like that, which is great. A handshake is worth a lot. A reputation is worth a lot. I think in today's day and age, because it is, getting frankly more competitive, we're seeing across the board, having something online that makes you as presentable as you are in person, or that your name is in the marketplace, it kind of is like the full picture. It's like tearing something down and not removing the materials. So your name is great. You guys could tear something down, great. But just kind of closing that gap and finishing the picture of taking the materials as well and disposing of them, things like that, is kind of like that internet aspect. So I don't know who does your website, but I give you guys a lot of credit on that case study, so to speak, with the projects.
Yeah,
it's
I appreciate it. I'll have to let them know because that's been a big push over the last couple of years. Is social media in a sense too. It's like getting your name out there. And like you said, a lot of our industry is built on client base and building relationships, but there's so much more out there, and using the web to your advantage is huge. And that's been a big push in our company the last couple of years, and they've recently redeveloped that website. So I'll definitely pass that info on. That it's getting some likes, and it's working.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's cool because it shows the capabilities, plus it also shows it in an aesthetic light, because the business, it can be gritty. You're tearing stuff down. Some people are imploding, some people are wrecking balls, and obviously there's different things with the excavators and stuff. It's not I don't want to say sexy, but it's not a beautiful thing to think about. But the way you guys have it presented is just, it's nice. It's a very, very nice thing. So not only are you guys on the internet, like you're a part of the modern world, but you also have something that looks good and it's appealing, even though the business isn't necessarily, building the skyscraper. It could be sometimes tearing that skyscraper down. Okay,
Well, like
so
you said,
love that.
it's hard to tell. It's hard to show some of our projects because it's not like you said. You can't drive by and be like, "Oh, here, there used to be a building here, now it's gone." So it's kind of hard. So yeah, that the website does help in that aspect too. So yeah,
That's
thanks.
cool.
Definitely, we appreciate that.
Yeah. Do you guys see, out of curiosity, do you guys see that people will reach out because of that? As it is kind of that virtual suit and tie, good first impression. This could be a second and third impression, but is it something that actually drives business, or is it just a thing that you have for the sake of having it?
It does. I would say it's not as big of a percentage. A lot of our work is just based on past relationships and work we've done with people in the past. But there are people out there who are looking online, and as we don't just work locally. We do try to do work more across the country, and it does help get our name out there. So
very nice. Cool. Are there some insights you'd like to share with not your owners, but owners of demolition companies or large construction companies that they can kind of take as wisdom from someone like you who is a valued employee who's been loyal? What do you wish you could express to the industry's owners so they can better understand, people like Jeremy and what you guys are going through day to day?
I would just say that, know your employees, and they're essentially the ones driving the ship. If your employees are happy, you're going to have a positive outcome. And if you can provide them a positive workplace, they're going to want to continue to work for you and do your best for them. But that's my biggest thing. Like, if you create a negative space and a place where no one wants to be there, then why would someone going to want to come and show up to work for you? So
okay, cool. Any maybe like incentive-based things such as bonuses or commissions? Or I talked to one of my clients estimators recently, and he's kind of given me some behind the scenes on what incentivizes and what kind of disincentivizes. Any kind of behind the scenes that you could share, not of yours, but just to owners, so they can better understand what makes you guys tick?
Yeah, there's always like RRSP plans and bonuses. Those are always helpful. Extended medical, extended benefits, those are always huge. And it seems like a little cost, but if you can get 6 or 7 massages out of the year, that definitely goes a long way. So it is little simple things like that, little perks. And even, like you said, handing out a couple of polos, like getting your name out there on some swag that you might think is, oh, here's an added cost, I got to pay for some t-shirts. But if guys are going to wear those t-shirts, it goes a long way. So I'd say,
especially when they're Under Armour, they're not like some junky shirt, something nice, like you want to wear it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've had over the years, there's been some hats and you're like, oh, where did this come from? But it's come a long way. There's, like you said, if you make something that someone wants to have and wants to support, then obviously they're gonna support it. So
got it. Awesome. Cool. Any fun projects that you've done that you've kind of been eyes and ears on that you would like to share? Maybe 2 or 3 that stick out perhaps, or were really, really special or cool to you?
Well, one of the ones technically we're still working on, it's this Oak Ridge project. It's one of the biggest projects in Western Canada. We started there in January 2020, demolishing the entire mall, which approximately was about 50,000 square meters, which would be, I guess, 550,000 square feet of floor space.
Not small.
Not small at all. It was going on. We were there for about a good 3 years doing the demolition and the abatement. And we also, our excavation and shoring guys were on site as well, excavating. There's 8 towers going in there right now. So we would start doing the demolition. They would be in behind us doing all the excavation. And then we also had our soil remediation guys on there as well, because there was a large portion of contaminated soils to come off as well too. So it was quite the project. I actually first provided budget pricing myself for it back in about 2011. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So a lot, like, we provide budgeting all the time. And then to just have a project that you provide budgeting through over the years, and that size finally kick off and finally start has been a lot of fun. You know, it was about 35,000 cubic meters of concrete that was all recycled, left off site, a few thousand tons of steel. And it happened during COVID, which was an unpredictable year. No one really knew what was going to happen. It was originally going to be in a multiple phase for us for demo. We started on the north and the south, and then COVID hit. The mall was essentially empty. No one was there. And so they were like, well, I guess if everyone's going to be gone, we might as well just continue on with the demo. And it just kept rolling. And it was a lot of fun. And since then, though, in all the new construction, there's been little hiccups here and there in the new towers, and we still have crews on site. Oh, we want to put an escalator here now. We need an opening. So we go back and demo there. So it's about 4 years now, 4 years since January that we've been on this project. So that's quite a large demo project. So
that's crazy. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we'll get a part 2 story. Any other job that comes to mind? I'm sure like that's a massive one and it's still active, but yeah, maybe is there a number 2 that comes to mind?
Yeah, we did this lime plant up in Cache Creek. So we had to decommission a lime plant up there, and that was the time we did our first implosion. So we got to knock over a couple. We call them large beehives. They were like 80 foot high steel towers essentially. So we imploded those, dropped them down. That was pretty cool. There was about 2,000 tons of steel. That was a 4 or 5 month project. That was a fun one. So
that's cool. Yeah. So with that in mind, how important is scrap in your world?
It's very important. There's value in scrap, and it fluctuates monthly. So it's hard to put firm in a price, and it's a gamble you have to take. If you think there's a large amount of scrap, okay, maybe our price doesn't have to be as big because we can actually make some money off the scrap, but then the project sits and waits for 4 or 5 months, and then the scrap value goes down. So it's hard to like lock it in. That part that makes it a bit tricky. It just, I don't know. That's why I like demolition. There's so many. Every site's so different. Like for instance, that Oak Ridge to demoing a mall to demoing a plant that's out in the interior. There's so many different aspects to both of them, and it's just like it's why I like coming to work, I guess, because it's just different every single day.
That is cool. And you guys again you're artists in a way. It's different than most people would think of it. Most people think of building, when you guys are again kind of deconstructing so many of times something can be put there. It's cool. You're modernizing and kind of out with the old, in with the new. It's really, really interesting. And I think unfortunately, and this is part of why we have the podcast, is bringing that to the ether. Of course, most of our listeners are industry based, but we again do have normalized kind of general citizens, and they probably could have no conception of what you guys do day in, day out. The risks, the equipment, the maintenance, the team leadership, etc. So on that real quickly, how does that work in terms of managing the teams and everyone kind of working for a particular mission or purpose?
Well, yeah, like for us, it's all about safety. Like when you use the word risk, like if someone screws up and builds a wall wrong, you can take it down and replace it. But if you take a wall wrong down, like someone could essentially be killed because they were in the wrong spot. So for us, the biggest risk is safety. So we just have to make sure our guys in the field receive the same message that we're giving to them. It's like safety comes first, and they need to make sure that they have all their procedures and paperwork first, and we're not putting anybody in harm's way. I always tell people we always plan for that 1%. We don't want that 1% to happen, but if we plan for that 1%, should something happen, most likely nobody's going to get hurt. So,
okay.
Like when you're demolishing a building, if it accidentally goes wrong and something collapses but no one gets hurt, well, technically the building's being demolished. It's just, it didn't happen the way you wanted in your procedure, and you just avoided anybody getting hurt. So it's hard dealing with some clients sometimes, because we have to put measures in place to keep people safe. And they're like, oh, do you really have to do that? And it's like, yes, I do. I hope it doesn't work that way, but if it does go wrong, I want to be able to say, hey, it went wrong, but everyone's here to still go home to their families.
Right. Yeah. And you guys checked off the boxes kind of thing. That's fascinating. So what are the clients giving you a headache about? Is it that it makes things take longer or slightly more expensive? Like, what's the problem?
There can be an added cost, or a lot of the times too, it's people want things demolished, but it could be adjacent to something that they still want to have open. And it's like, oh, we can have people walk right here. And it's like, okay, we're tearing down a 7-story building and you want people walking along the sidewalk? No, we'd rather push them to the other side of the street. And so then you got to get a different permit. It's explaining to them like the reason why we're doing it. We're not trying to delay a project. We just want to make sure everyone's safe. And they do get it. It's just it might take a few extra days to put up some safety measures. To them, that's added schedule, right? So
yeah, interesting. Okay, and most people's, I guess, missions are, at least clients, typically it's to get work done yesterday. Is that right? They usually are pretty, let's get it done, let's move, come on.
Yeah, everyone wants to get their project done as quick as they can, but a lot of people, that's why we have repeat clients, though. As much as we might add a tiny bit extra to the schedule, it's like, well, our track record is we continue to get it safe. And it's why they would hire someone like us. It's like, okay, we need to get it done by this date. Is that feasible? Well, it's feasible. Let's add a little bit of factor in for a little bit extra here. And that way everybody goes home safe. So it's just a matter of sitting down with a client face to face and actually bringing them to site and showing them what we're explaining, instead of just like an email battle. It's amazing how much it actually helps to go to site, explain them that, oh yeah, okay, we never thought of that. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that's why you guys essentially hired us, to make sure that this building comes down on time, on budget, and safely. So
yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's not just like their team members, their clients or customers who are coming. They also have to factor in is like, a building can go on their building. A building can go on to a building that's a neighbor's building or something of that nature. So it's not just this whole, and I think maybe some potential clients of yours, they're thinking, I want a price that's as cheap as possible, timeline that's as quick as possible. And I would imagine that you guys, may not always be the quickest or the cheapest, but you are valuable, which is a blend of, price, time, certainty and things. I would imagine you've had some interesting run-ins maybe with companies that are not as high caliber as you guys, who have maybe come in cheaper or they can do it quicker, and there have been some headaches that have come with that. Is that kind of news that you guys hear out there in the world of horror stories from other vendors?
Yeah, oh yeah, and there's always guys going to be out there that can quickly come in. And I guess when other people get slow, they're like, well, I have an excavator. How hard is it to go wreck something? And there's a skill to it. So, and there's always going to be people who can come in and like, oh yeah, we can do this for half the price. And it's like, okay, well, did you really think of putting in all these other factors? And so that is what it is. That's our price we provide. And if you want to go with someone who's half our price, that's up to them ultimately. And I wish them the best of luck, and hopefully we can get them on the next one.
Right. Yeah. Or you'll be coming to clean up the mess of the other guys.
Yeah. And the hard part with demolition too is a lot of people, it's not like, as what I was saying earlier, when you drive by a site where the building's demolished, it's gone. So it's not like you're looking at it. If someone was cheaper, you're not looking at a cheap product the rest of your life. The building's gone. How you got there, that's up for them to live with. So.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, cool. Do you have any insights you want to share other than what we've covered so far? Again, we have so many different audience members from different backgrounds. Any things that you think would kind of pique their curiosity?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. The hardest part lately is just dealing with it's a big clash, and it's not just speaking with demolition. There's a big clash of a couple different types of generations in the workforce now, and that's been one of the biggest challenges, is dealing with essentially appealing with two different types of generations that look at work completely different. So
yeah, tell me about that. Maybe we can go in more detail. You have the old school people, you have the new school people. Sometimes the new school people have an old school heart. I'm kind of that kind of person where I'm modern. I use technology, like I'm cool with that, but I also want to get the job done well, get a job done right. So what have you seen? Because I assume not all the time the young ones are always the hardest, or excuse me, are the hardest headed, or the least wanting to work, and the oldest ones are not always the ones who want to do things right and are just adamant to work. So can you tell me, is the breakdown what people would assume, or how does that look in your world?
Yeah, I think there's a misconception, and everyone just labels this younger generation as lazy and the older generation as they worked harder. And it's, well, the younger generation also, like you said, they have technology that aids the work and allows the work to be done easier and not as effective on your body. Whereas the older generation, you had to work hard, you didn't have the technology, and they were working these long days, essentially killing themselves. And so they feel that they need to keep working that hard, and they look at a younger guy who the technology is doing a bit of the work and they're monitoring it, and they're classified as lazy. So dealing with the two generations is a bit tricky, but I don't know, they learn to adapt. So
that's interesting. Okay, so I guess moral of the story is, for anyone with hiring power to demolition company, take everyone on a case-by-case basis, irregardless of their age. Of course, you got to do that for discrimination policies and this and that. But have you found maybe any interesting mechanisms or ways to test people before they come on as a part of the team to see where they align with, irregardless of their age or their background? Like, what do you guys do to get good team members?
A lot of the part, though, is it's hard to judge by essentially a resume, because you can put whatever you want on a resume. And even with then a quick 5-minute phone call before you're even in-person interview, that can go a long way. Or just set them up, and if they have time, try them out for a week or two during their probation, and you can learn a lot from that as well. So yeah, we'll hire anybody. So if anyone who's keen to go to work and learn, and we can give them the opportunity, then there's plenty of work for them out there.
How much of a difference does it make if they have experience in demolition versus not having experience, from your perspective? I know it depends on the role and things, but
I would say it depends on the role, but it depends on the person. If they're willing to learn and try something new, then I don't think the experience matters that much. Especially in our workforce, we have so many experienced people who like to share their knowledge, and they want to teach essentially younger people and or older people. We have older people who come work for us who don't have demolition experience, and we've created a team culture that it's not about like just me and I'm going to be here and I'm going to be the best and work hard and not teach anybody. It's like, if I can teach those around me, it ultimately makes my work easier, right? So it's that culture, that mentality we have, that we're building a team. It's not an individual. So
yeah, I like that. Well, and plus it makes it safer. If certain incentives are in place, it makes us more money collectively as well as individualistically. That's cool. I like it, man. Well, yeah, we're going to round off the podcast. Who is good to get in touch with you guys? You know, what type of business role, that kind of thing, in terms of if they need work in your area? Who is a good person? Is it just general contractors? Is it developers? What does that look like?
Well, we get contacted by general contractors direct. We do a lot of work for developers direct, because we'll do a lot of work ahead of time. It's the biggest thing that delays a lot of projects is permitting. But you can get the demolition of a building down, and then you can wait for all your permits later. And instead of bringing on a general contractor and having them on payroll for a couple of years so they get everything else going, developers will reach out to us direct, and we can go wreck and get ahead of time too. So yeah, it's anybody who can get a hold of us. So
interesting. Okay. And is there a good phone number, website? I obviously know these things, but you could share with the audience in case anyone's listening in your area that could use your services.
Yeah, our website is www.matcon.ca, and our phone number is 604-520-5909. Pretty
Awesome.
sure.
Okay.
I don't normally call it, so I'm pretty sure that one's right.
One way or another.
Yeah.
You know the company. You use that
Yeah.
good old thing called Google or the internet. If
Yeah,
worse come to
absolutely.
worst, that's pretty funny. I like that. I would have probably done the same thing being a perfectionist. I'm like, I'm pretty sure, but just in case. Awesome. Love it. All right. Last question before we wrap up entirely is could you maybe say 2 or 3 things that you wish you knew before getting in the industry that you maybe learned the hard way after these years? Or maybe that you learned within the first year of being in the business that you wish yourself back in the day knew prior to getting into things?
That's a tough
Stick
one.
it out, I would imagine, is one of them. Like you're doing great. You know, the loyalty to the company, like sticking it out, I would think it's one of the big ones.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say there. Like what I would want to know ahead of time is hard. Just the biggest thing is probably just can't take everything personally and everything to heart. Like some things happen, and one of the guys, he's not with us anymore. It's been a few years, but he used to always say, like, if you can go home and go to bed and the issue isn't going to affect you the next day, then like don't worry about it, and just kind of like info like that. Like there's so much more to it. So
have a thick skin.
Yeah,
you know, this is gonna sound crazy. I've been watching the show on Netflix, and this guy, he talks a big talk. He owns a wrestling group in Kentucky, and it's just a fascinating show. But you have these wrestlers who are big and hulking, you know, muscular and stuff, and they look imposing and strong and everything. This guy kind of talks down to those people, and he's just like a skinny, average dude. And it's funny because he had an instance where one of the wrestlers said something to him, and this is a guy who's used to talking down on people, and he took it so personally. So kind of interestingly to your industry really is you have these guys, they're in demolition. Sometimes you have, you know, tough looking people, and some of them are, I would say most of them are very tough-hearted, tough-minded, strong people, but also too, like, you could still mess with people's psyche. You don't know what they're going through. There's certainly in the industry challenges with every business, but you know, challenges with substances, be it alcohol or drugs, or even smaller things like cigarettes and things. But I think that's valuable maybe for the owners and even the team members. You know, respect your owners as long as they're respectful of you. There may be times that you think they're maybe not caring about you or being disrespectful, but you have no idea the nights that they can't go to sleep, kind of like you're alluding to, when millions and millions of dollars are floating on one project in certain instances or across multiple projects. And then for the team members, you know, for the employers listening, I mean, they may have a truck, they may be a big, tall, bad looking dude, you know, but you don't know what they're going through. And you kind of alluded to this earlier with the personal issues. Is life happens, and I think many of us, you know, we work so we can live, but it does sometimes feel like we're living to work. So just keep an eye out for your team. You know, keep an eye out for your leadership too. Like, everyone's a human, even though sometimes it may not seem like it. They sometimes have to act certain ways just so you can get a paycheck or something of that nature. Or so they can keep the doors open so they can keep people employed. So love it, man. I think that's kind of a cool way to end here. So thank you so much, Jeremy. Really enjoyed having you guys on. We are going to sign off from the podcast. So thank you guys. Jeremy, thank you for coming on.
Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Absolutely.
That's a wrap for this episode of Demolition Success Secrets. Stay tuned and subscribe for more explosive insights from our upcoming episodes. Until then, continue to blow up your demolition business and make the competition rubble in your path.